In this video, I'm going to explain how you can market your capital raise. And you want to make sure you stick to the end, because if you don't implement all of these pieces combined, then you will get no results. And we want to make sure that doesn't happen. So when you have a capital raise, this is after you make sure it's legally ready and it's ready to go. So you want to make sure that you can get as many eyes on it as possible. And a way to do that is to file it in a way that allows you to market it on the internet. So I haven't spent the most amounts on ads, but our team has gone really deep in Facebook ads, Google ads, and YouTube ads, and even LinkedIn ads. A lead is somebody who could be potentially interested in buying your product, and they're people that you have information with, who you can facilitate a conversation with. You want to get as many leads as possible and then turn these leads into investors that are subscribed to your fund, that have put money into your fund. And a way to do that is to hunt and to farm. You want to make sure you get as many eyeballs as possible, right? And a way to do that is, there are two ways. Either you use spears or you use nets. And what I say a spear is you want to make sure either you do the sniper approach, where you target people specifically, or you have a net where you bring in mass people. Both approaches may not work depending on the type of deal you're doing. So if you're raising capital for a deal that is not a giant amount, let's say it's less than a few $1,000,000, you want to make sure you get as many eyeballs as possible. So there are three main ways to get eyes on your capital raise. Number one, you can go out to specific people and target them via email or via LinkedIn. At the time of the recording of this video, these are the two most strong approaches, either through LinkedIn or through email. And this is the online version. In person, you would really just close in person or get introduced to somebody. So make sure you use email, LinkedIn, and in-person intros to find those specific investors. So that's the spearing approach. If you want to do the broad approach, you can run ads. So running ads is really tricky for investors that are really big. So you want to make sure you only run ads for deals for people that are wanted to invest like 50,000, 100,000, 250,000. So yeah, make sure that you focus on doing both at the same time. Do the mass approach and do the narrow approach, because you never know. Like, you can't depend on too few people, because if you depend on too few people, you never know what's going to happen last minute. You never know about if somebody says they're going to say yes and then they complain last minute. You just never know. So you have to make sure you keep on going and you don't stop. So that's the main thing. Then the last thing is, if you have a big deal, you're going to have to do more spearing than netting. Let's say you're raising 50 million for a deal and then you want to find only 3 investors for that. The only way you can do a mass approach is if you run a lot of ads to find brokers for those people, and it can become a mess, but it can work sometimes. But it's a bit finicky in my opinion. The people I've seen had the most amount of success at our company Raises.com and at other companies were only through doing the specific approach when it comes to finding a few big investors. But if you want to find many investors, just focus on getting many checks in and running ads and just going all out as possible. And then the last thing that you want to remember is, if you want to get as many eyeballs on the deal as possible, then you have to do an offering that lets you talk to unaccredited investors legally. So in America, this is something called Reg CF, Regulation Crowdfunding, or there's something called Regulation A. So Regulation CF is very small. At the time of the recording of this video, it's only $5 million you can raise from that. But if you want to raise more than that, then use Regulation A, which allows you to raise up to 75 million to unaccredited investors. The problem is it costs a lot of money to set up and to audit, but once you get it running, you can market to anybody who qualifies for the deal. They can invest as low as $100. In Canada, you have something called the Offering Memorandum Exemption. That allows you to raise capital to anybody who understands, who goes through the risks and disclaimers and all this. And make sure you talk to a lawyer to confirm it. And if you have those types of rules, you can run ads to anybody, and it's more scalable. The problem is you have to start dealing with more complaints, because it's a bit more risky, because these investors, they won't really be as ready to invest or as knowledgeable as accredited investors. So that's pretty much it. So if you haven't taken anything from this video, just know that if you want to get as many eyes on your capital raise as possible, make sure you use spears. So that's emails, targeted LinkedIn messages, and in-person intros, alongside with the mass market approach, which is ads. And then the last and bonus piece is running teams to build out the outreach and the email campaigns for you. Typically at Raises.com, some of our members, they have about between 2 to 12 different accounts running on LinkedIn, hunting out to investors at the same time. And so this can produce a mass market effect. And we know other people that what they're doing are running tons of email campaigns in combination. So sometimes in some markets that may be the best approach, especially with like big deals, because people are always on LinkedIn ready to do business, as opposed to Facebook where they may be ready to do business, but they're not as product aware as they are on LinkedIn when it comes to investments. So that's the last and little known bonus, is make sure you just have an army of people that you can get together to run these campaigns for you. And if this is something that makes sense to you and you want to work for our team, just head to raises.com. But if this is something that you have questions about, you may want to look at the next video on the channel that appears somewhere on the screen and click it, follow it, make sure you get everything all set up properly, and we'll see you in the next one.